Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the 435 podcast. I'm your host, Robert McFarland, and today we have a gratitude episode for you. It's Thanksgiving week. The holidays are coming up, and Brandon, myself, Blake, we missed Jeff today. He's out sick, but we want to talk about what we're grateful for in this past year and looking forward to the next year. So hope you enjoy this episode, guys. As always, check us out at realestate435.com for real estate expertise, Ducharme Wealth Management if you need financial advising, and Blueform Media if you have a great idea for a podcast. Enjoy this one, guys. We'll see you out there.
From the Blueform Media Studios, this is the 435 Podcast, the pulse of Southern Utah.
Rob, I think we've had a really good year looking back. And I think that what we should have some discussion around is some of the pits and peaks of the year. I think like not to say everything's been sunshine and rainbows or that we're ready to, call it a year and look totally in the review. But I think that we've had some extraordinary blessings this year. And I think that we've had some challenges at the same time. And I think Thanksgiving is always a time to have some reflection and just try to put into perspective some of the things that we're grateful for.
It's Thanksgiving week, and I think you're right. Staying in gratitude, man, it's such a hard thing for me. I don't know why. I'm very cynical, and Jeff makes it worse.
Jeff is for sure one of the most cynical people I know.
Yeah, and so it's always hard to stay grateful. I did a journal for a long time that I wrote down like my top 10 goals that I want to achieve. Just any 10 that came into my mind, and then 10 gratitudes. And I always would settle on, like warm cup of coffee and like the simple things in life in gratitude. It's hard for me to celebrate big wins, like just in nature.
I think like
where I always minimize what may be a big win to somebody else. I'm like, well, it's not that big of a win.
You ever feel like sometimes if you celebrate your wins, you're going to like jinx it?
Like sometimes I've won like small prizes. And I'll be like, man, it wasn't even the grand prize. I wasted like my luck on the next. Like I would have rather not won anything and just won the grand prize. Like sometimes that's what goes through my head. It's like, oh man, I only won this little thing instead of the big thing that I did want. And I'm like, why is my brain wired like that? I hate it.
I think that goes.
I guess people say the self-awareness is good, but I don't know. It's not helping.
Self-awareness is always good. But
was that Mal laughing at me?
I don't know. I heard Mal laughing.
I giggled.
You got to laugh on the bike because then I'm like, I don't know if that was for me or not.
Is this a phantom person in the background?
I think just like Blake was just saying in our earlier, comparison's the thief of joy.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's just easy to say, I won, sure, but I didn't win the grand prize, and so. I think you're just playing the comparison game, which is supernatural. I think like there is something inside of us as humans that makes us want to play the comparison game, no matter how bad we know it is. Right?
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it when I see someone that I am not a fan of, that I think like in my world, I think they're actively doing harm to people. And I see that they're having like, they're not winning as much. Right.
Yeah.
And so like objectively, I know like you should naturally just like you want to celebrate people's wins. Right. But there's this thing about me that says like, but if I really truly believe that they're doing damage when they have wins, then I'm willing, like I'm willing to, rather than, so it's like the opposite of the comparison game, right? It's like, oh, I'm winning and they're not, but I feel good about that because, and I'm going to play the comparison game now because I'm winning, right? Because I'm winning relative to them. I'm going to start playing the comparison game, and that's like a hard cycle to break. So even if you say, well, I'm going to not compare when I don't have the big wins, like sometimes when you have the big wins, you then play the comparison game as well.
Yeah, maybe.
But you're playing it as like a winner rather than the loser.
Yep.
But
and then it's just which side of the which side of the fence is your like status quo? Are you like perpetually looking at the negative side of things? Is the glass half empty or half full? Right? It's like, how do you?
No, I think a lot of times I'm trapped in the same misery of you, which is self-awareness. Yeah. And we just sit back and go, okay, That's not good. That's not good. Okay, I'm here, but now I'm self-aware to what my own shortcomings are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a really uncomfortable place to live, which is why I think most people, like our natural tendency is to not live there, right? Like it's
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing with coming up, being grateful for the year and then like looking forward to the next year, like what's a gratitude that keeps you excited about what's to come, right? Because you can be grateful in the past for like the things that you have, and then excited for the future, right? Is there one where you're like, man, this was a great year for this portion of your life, and then you're looking forward to more next year? For me, it's my boys, like watching them grow every single year, and hearing you talk about Ledger, dude, that's awesome. When they're little babies, it's hard to get excited about the next year because you're like, no, I want you to stay a little baby.
Oh yeah, I don't fall into that camp.
No,
I'm not falling into that camp. What I learned when Ledger was really little. I mean, he is still like really little by comparison, but when he was a baby, it was really hard for me to connect with him. Right, like my wife breastfed, and exclusively, and we're really grateful for that. But it made it like he didn't want to, I was kind of useless to him, like in a lot of ways. It was hard to connect. And
why is this? He's like, all hard. He's not squishy. Why is he hurting me?
As he started, like after he started walking and then started playing more, and then especially I'd say like when he started talking, that's when we started to connect more, and I learned to play with him, and that was like a really big game changer.
Yeah.
But I think also part of it in the self-awareness is I was letting my own insecurities about, I can't connect with him as good, get in the way of me leaning into that relationship with my own kid and, putting in the work and making sure I was there and involved and all this stuff. Because now that we have another kid, our little girl, she's 7 months old right now, and I can play with her. And granted, a lot of times when I hold her, she just wants to go back to mom still, right?
Yeah,
Same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But my relationship and kind of the bonding that I've been able to do with her at 6-7 months, it's light years ahead of what I was able to do with our first kid.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I was more comfortable and learned to be, more of a dad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a huge growth and learning opportunity. Like probably one of the most challenging times to have it happen, right? Professionally, at least. But we planned it that way, right? My wife and I waited a long time before we had kids. We kind of planned everything out. And so I'm really excited now that I have this kind of different relationship with my kids to roll that forward.
Mm-hmm.
But to weave that back in, not, to do the Trump weave on you here, it makes me excited for them to grow up faster, right? Like, and not to like grow up and like get out of my house, but I can see that the older they get, the more that I can be involved, right? The more that I can do the dad things, like air quotes, dad things, like teach him how to fix stuff, or, like he loves playing golf in the yard. Like I can't teach a 7-month-old baby how to swing a golf club. So as she gets older, I'll be able to have those same kind of like dad experiences, right? It's like, and that's the age that I'm really excited for. I think that we're also really excited to travel again.
Yeah.
Which
you're a little bit more mobile.
I think as we hit potty training and, get beyond that, it's going to be a lot easier. So I'm excited for that stuff to come. But man, like this next year, my daughter will probably be walking. She's 7 months. She crawls all over the place. She started clapping this week, like kind of on demand. And she started eating food recently.
Nice.
Eating solids. So, next year, like it's going to be, my world's going to continue to change just really fast.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. I'm excited for my boys, getting a little bit older, going back to like that mobile, being mobile and being able to connect with them differently than when they're real tiny. And I know you only have like you have a really small time to connect with your kids to where they want to connect with you. Cause that apparently, from what I'm told, it's like 13 and they're gone. They're gone. They don't want mom and dad as much. All that stuff starts to slide downhill, but it's also natural. We're supposed to leave the nest So it's like they got to start not wanting to be in the nest for them to go out and make their own nest, so it's like that, progression of kids. So, having an 8-year-old is my oldest. So then, only have a handful of years left to really connect with that. So I'm excited for that next year. And I'm super grateful for the time I got to spend with him this year.
I think one of the things that I've observed you doing the couple of years that we've been business partners that I've been impressed by is the extent to which you lean in and take advantage of the flexibility of the role that you play in our business and say, hey, a Thursday afternoon or whatever, like I'm not out doing showings. And so you could spend your time cold calling people, right? To try to get the one more, you do it all year and you get the one or two more, real estate deals or whatever. Instead, like you were like a lot of times you're out of the office in the afternoon sometimes, and it's because you're like volunteering at your kid's school, coaching their baseball, right? Like this extra stuff where you do spend. I feel like I observe you spend like pretty good time with your kids in a very intentional manner, not just like I'm just going home.
You're right.
But there's an activity, you're volunteering, doing that kind of stuff, and I think that's. If you're looking for something to be grateful for, like that's a life that not a lot of people have the opportunity to live.
It's true.
And, your kids probably are really grateful for that too.
Yeah.
I guess
they for sure are. They like hanging out with dad. We like going on adventures and I know that's going to pay off dividends later on. And it's really, being a real estate agent, you get to choose what path you want to grow. Do you want to grow massive and have hundreds and hundreds of deals, but your connections with those people are really shallow and transactional. And that's not the route that I wanted to go. It's not the route Jeff wants to go. I know even you in your business, like it's not a quantity, it's a quality.
Yeah.
As much as every business, mind out there will be like, no, it's in the quality's in the quantity. I've heard that so many times. I'm like, I don't know, man. Everybody's got different expectations of how they want to live their life.
Yeah. I don't know. I've had to bring on additional advisors in that business just because we don't have like the turnover in clients. And so I just I get too busy.
Yep.
And so even just the organic growth, we just have to expand so we can keep taking care of people.
Yeah. So what else? Going back, gratitude. What else? A couple more gratitudes for this year, and then I was actually interested in a couple of topics I didn't even know you heard about.
I am grateful that we're past all the elections.
Me too. We were just talking about that with Blake. Blake, are you on yet? He's sleeping. No. We were just talking about how the politics. Everybody's burnt out, man. Holy cow. What a crazy last couple of years.
I feel I didn't get as hyper emotionally involved as I did in the past.
Oh, really?
I think 2020 sucked me into a political place that I am not proud of.
Oh, really? Interesting.
I think, and I don't care to go back there and rehash that out at all, but I think this time.
Please, Brandon, tell me more. No, I'm just kidding.
I think what's unique this time is I looked at it, I got 4 more years of maturity under my belt, right?
Yeah.
And just looked at it with different context, different lens.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe this time I just,
it always feels like there's so much on the line though. And so it's like this stress, this like lingering stress that everybody's like paying attention to, all collective energy.
I just feel like
this one thing.
I've been through enough presidential elections now as an adult and congressional elections. That just, it's the biggest, this is the biggest, most important election of your lifetime. And I'm like, that's what you said last time and the time before. And I'm just like, at what point do I just look at the data and say, I just don't think it's going to matter that all that much.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are going to disagree though.
For certain issues, and they probably will. Mm. But this election cycle, I just looked at it and said, I don't think there's, as a whole, as a category of people, I don't think politicians are even close to free from corruption. Mm-hmm. I think that government is full of fraud, waste, abuse. I think bureaucrats are going to do everything they can. They're going to fight tooth and nail to keep that. So although I'm a very conservative person by nature, conservative and libertarian is probably how I describe myself. And I hope that the Trump administration succeeds in so many of the things that they said they want to do, I wasn't putting all my chips on them winning emotionally.
Yeah.
Or any candidate for that. I just said, this time I just looked at it and said, okay, how can I read the markets and how can I profit? Because, chances are, I'm going to get screwed either way in the long run by taxes.
Yeah.
And by, someone's going to pass a policy that I don't like, regardless of what party they're in. So, I'll cast my vote at the ballot box, right? I made sure I was involved enough to be an informed voter.
Yeah.
Voted, which I'm grateful for, right? Like I'm super grateful that we can do that in our country. But other than that, just, like what was going to bring me the most success and the most joy and, everything long-term in my family was for me to just, right.
I'm grateful it's over too, man.
The most
like
economic benefit off of it.
The most likely scenario typically ends up being the case. And I don't think it was likely that Trump was going to win, and then Trump winning, oddly enough, at least around here, has been like this huge sigh of relief. Like I had people come in an open house the other day, like, oh man, I'm just so grateful that Trump won. He's like, now he's all of a sudden motivated to buy real estate, which you think is that like a real thing? People are waiting to buy real estate or sell real estate, to find out what the election results are.
I think
it was weird to see it happen right after.
I think people really were. And what was funny was right after it happened, I like Wednesday and Thursday morning, I had people start like reaching out like, oh man, is it time? Should we get invested more in the market now? I'm like, I mean, the market was telling us this like 2 weeks ago. They were pricing this in, and like, remember what I said just a minute ago was, how do I profit off of this? Like, we just allocated out, and we invested accordingly,
right?
According to what the market was telling us.
Yeah, the market changes every day. So whether it's one big event like an election, it's like
it's already priced in, right?
It's already priced in.
Market's a forward-looking, discounting mechanism.
I was relieved as well.
I'm glad you were. Blake's back.
I'm
I was
back,
wondering.
sorry.
I was wondering where you were.
Yeah, nature was calling, so I had to.
Nature calls.
Yeah, he was relieved, I suppose.
He was relieved.
I'm relieved.
Okay, moving on. But I do think that people primarily were waiting, not because they thought if Kamala Harris had won, that the world was going to end, so they don't want to buy a home. I mean,
that legitimately
I'm sure,
was this guy's argument.
I think some people maybe like thought that, but what I really think people were holding out for, it was the interest rate play. They thought interest rates would come down if Trump won.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. This guy has Bitcoin. And he's like, oh man, Bitcoin rallied after Trump's win. And now he's like, I'm going to use my Bitcoin to buy real estate. That was legitimately a walk-in.
Okay.
And this is a mid-40s-year-old software engineer.
Okay, well, that's different context, man.
It's true. It's just really interesting to have like those kinds of scenarios like in real life, like play out before you when you're thinking, oh, are people on the fence, whether one side or the other wins? How many people? There's $3.5 trillion in crypto market, right? Like how many thousands and thousands of people are out there that with that victory, with that Trump win, now Bitcoin's rallied to 100,000 almost, right? And would that have happened if Kamala won? Do you think Bitcoin would have rallied the same way? I don't know.
I don't know if it would have happened this fast, but I think you saw through this, really, if you look at the charts, I'm not going to get into charts right now. People don't care.
Where's that soundboard?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's on another device we have.
Yeah, but going back to it, I think it's pretty crazy though. Like being grateful for something like that kind of an event and then seeing it play out in real life. There's a lot of people relieved around this place. I mean, for sure. And so thinking of, what do you think? I guess politics dominated everything. When we look back at our stats on the different episodes and things like that, it seems like the community really is interested in like personal stories of the locals, which I'm super grateful for, having the opportunity to like tell stories of like local people and their business struggles and how all these things are interconnected, how business and politics, all those things are all intertwined, and to see it play out, kind of how it has this year. I've never seen it that way because I've never followed it as closely because of the podcast. I've never followed it as closely to watch how they all link together. That makes sense?
Yeah, there were some really cool stuff that we learned this year. I think doing this podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful to have made those connections and learned that, because it sheds a lot of light on our local community that we live in. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're here, we choose to participate and be pretty active in the community.
Yeah.
And it's really helpful to understand at a deeper level as some non-natives.
Yeah, for sure. We're a bunch of non-natives. Blake, what are you grateful for, man? Thinking of podcast world, I mean, this election showed us that podcasts are king at this point.
Yeah, dude, I'm just grateful for good sources of information and the ability to discern that at our own leisure.
Is that why you listen to Call Her Daddy?
Yeah, exactly. I listen to the Hawktua girl too.
Hawktua.
Those are like the most trusted sources on the internet.
That's it. That's it.
No, but like Elon Musk buying Twitter just to allow people. All we really want is the ability to discern. Like let's stop putting the filters on everything and let's discern for ourselves. It's going to be a horrible mess to swim through, but at least we can pick up that burden and do it. Rather than being like, oh, well, teacher said this and the newscaster said this and I just have to take it for face value. Now, like, go do the work. And I think that's our responsibility, right? Is just to be doing that work as citizens and finding out, like you said earlier, Brandon, being an informed voter, right? Making sure you've done your due diligence.
So my question is for the listeners. And obviously you guys can chime in and ask as well. But if you're listening in to this podcast at this stage in the episode, we want to think, that discernment, that ability to look at these different platforms as opportunities to learn and be concise. I'm curious, what do you want to hear out of us? What do you want to know about the local conversation? Because it is so niche, right? It's so small. We were looking at subscribers and views and all that stuff, and it gets so exhausting because all you really want to know is what's impactful to the people in the local community, and what do they want to know more about. And I'm super grateful. This is another thing is the base of subscribers that we have now, they do communicate to me like, hey, this would be a good topic or that would be a good topic. I have a lot of really close people and, people I've never met before, but only, found on the internet and found on YouTube to say, hey, this would be a good topic to dive deeper into, or I want to know more about this or that. So, and I really appreciate that. So I want to continue that to be able to guide the podcast forward. Is what does the local population want to know? Do they want to talk more about national stuff and then zoom in the state level? I would probably say most of them just want to know what's going on in the state and the local level, like across the state and then here in Southern Utah.
I think when people come to this podcast, if they have a care about national issues, my guess is that what they care is how it affects their life here locally.
Yeah. How does it connect? Where's that connection point?
I mean,
Yeah,
I remember talking to Adam Snow once, like Commissioner Snow, and he was telling me about like the water issues in Southern Utah are literally being discussed in Washington.
Yeah.
Right. So all of a sudden, water is this national conversation. It's a conversation here locally, but they're having conversation at the national level that would absolutely impact the state and then our county level.
Yeah. It's like,
water resources.
If you pull up the news, like St. George News, and you look at what the headlines are, it's like car crash, this guy, robbed a ATM. And then, there's all these like really horrible stories about like these little fraction moments of time, but there's no like deeper dive stories into like what's going on in the community and connecting that. So I think that your point's taken. I think that would be, but is that true? Is that what people are listening? The people that are listening, is that what they want to know?
I kind of agree, actually, if I may.
Yeah, we got two.
I think these issues that are being discussed in Congress or in Washington, like Brandon's referring to, they're not making local headlines enough. And so a car crash and a guy robbing an ATM, like pick a city in the United States, and that's happening right now, right? It's not that unique, but what's lacking in Southern Utah, and I think in a lot of small towns, is the news media outlets have become so commercialized and so big and so fear-driven. Like they're looking for a frequency of fear in the people because that's what grabs attention too, unfortunately, is fear. So there's not a lot. I think what you guys could do and what I would hope to see from the 435 podcast as a listener myself and co-producer with Mallory is like more let's tell people the history of this place. Like,
Yeah.
who settled this place? What's the significance of like certain buildings in downtown and certain buildings in Santa Clara? And why does this issue start here? And where does it go back to? Oh, this issue started in 1820 or whatever.
Yeah, right.
That
That's a
kind
good
of
point.
stuff. I love that. Also talking about like current events or major events that have happened, like, on Netflix, all this like FLDS stuff.
Yeah.
It's huge
Yeah,
nationwide.
Chris Weiler, that was one of our most popular episodes this
Right.
last year.
Yeah.
And then like the significance of like, we're 45 minutes away from Colorado City, maybe an hour if traffic. But,
Yeah.
that's kind of a big part of this region of the United States. It's part of our history. And there was a huge migration in the early 2000s to this area with all the FLDS people coming in and stuff. And like that's interesting to the nation, but it's also relevant to us since we live here. And I think that could be good takes on that stuff.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that anytime we highlight something like that, we always give everyone the most, like dignity and respect possible and let them tell their story, however they want it.
Oh, definitely.
Sort of told. And I think we've done a nice job at that so far.
For sure.
I think
I'm just curious. I'm just genuinely curious about stuff. So I just want to know more. Like, I don't want to pass the judge.
Bring someone on that can tell you why Washington's called Dogtown.
That's interesting. I didn't even know that.
And you've never heard Washington called Dogtown?
Yeah, I've heard that. It was like the first thing I heard when I moved here.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah,
I missed that
Washington.
one.
It's like the area up like Old Washington,
Okay.
like south
South of Telegraph?
like south side of Telegraph, like but north of like where you would start to but like north of the river basically.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Yep.
you just call that's Old Dogtown, man.
Because there's a dog park down there?
No, the dog park is called Dogtown because it was called Dogtown. That's why they called it Dogtown.
So, yeah,
Dog
I mean,
Park.
those are interesting parts. Those are definitely interesting.
I've got a book at the office.
Yeah, like what's the history behind that?
Yeah, I think
That
that's
would be a
good.
cool thing. Why is Dogtown called Dogtown? Because like you guys know
Okay,
Derek Legg.
Okay, I'll give.
Talks
give.
about it all the time.
Don't give it. Now we got to do a whole episode on it. We'll let you lead it. There's
Let
there's the
it-
teaser.
Let it stir. Let it
It's not flattering. It's not flattering. Nothing's flattering.
No, I got
Revisionist history, man. When you look back at time, everybody looks dirty.
Remind me. I'll have you bring. I'll get Cody Spenlove on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cody Spenlove. He's got an unlimited amount of great stories about Southern Utah, but in particular,
There is a good podcast. There was a podcast. I got to pull it up too. It's like the history of St. George going on right now too.
well, Cody Spenlove wrote his like thesis paper on an event that happened in Southern Utah that kind of is tangential. Is that how you say that?
Sure.
Tangential.
I'll take it.
tangential
Accepted.
to the Mountain Meadow massacre.
Okay.
And kind of bridges the gap between that and Powell's expedition.
Interesting.
And he's got some really cool historical evidence and journals he found and wrote about these topics.
That's the crazy thing about Utah history though, is that it's all written down. I mean, the
A lot of it
pioneers,
is,
they
yeah.
wrote a lot of stuff down.
So-
and they kept meticulous details.
Yeah, if I can if Cody's willing to come on and talk,
That'd be a cool
and
one.
open up. Sometimes he doesn't like telling everything he knows to everyone, but
Well, I mean, this as we kind of wrap, I know this episode is really a big shout out to all of our audience, the subscribers, the people that have been tuning in for the last almost 100 episodes plus. I don't even know what episode we're on. I think we're approaching 100. We're like around 90. So
Yeah, right around there.
right around 90, and thinking about of how do we approach 2025 over the next couple of weeks. We're gonna kind of just wrap up the year without taking on any super heavy topics like we've taken all year. And 2025, we're gonna really gear up for 2025 to have a really a good solid educational type podcast for Southern Utah, for Utah in general, of what are the big issues, what are the business topics, what are the real estate things going on to keep people, everybody's going to go to their own individual sources for all different types of stuff. They're going to listen to this podcast for sports and this podcast for, this or that entertainment. But we want everybody to know that we're dedicated to giving Southern Utah in-depth analysis on what's current and what's going on right now. We'll take a look down memory lane. We'll go backwards and get some history lessons in between. But really, we're committed to what's the current local government? What's the government news that you need to know? Legislation's going to come through. It's going to be confusing. There's going to be lots of different stuff rolling through. So we're going to try to sift through some of that stuff when we follow the politics. We're going to continue to track Tech Ridge and Intergalactic and the biggest businesses that are in Southern Utah to see how they're doing, other big businesses that are going to be coming into town. So yeah, that's what we're committed to all the rest of the year. So, but I am thankful for you, Brandon, being a part of the team. Blake and Mal. Jeff, who's sick right now. If you got prayers for Jeff, he's not feeling super great today. We wanted to have him on the show to do a Thanksgiving episode. So thinking about you, buddy. Everybody else, enjoy your Thanksgiving break.
Do you mind if I say what I'm grateful for?
Oh yeah. Because you were relieving yourself.
Yes, I was. I'm grateful for modern plumbing, first of all. But
modern plumbing.
Yeah, but Brandon and Rob are fantastic podcasters. Their consistency is unmatched, and their dedication to their brands. I'm super grateful to know you guys as friends and have you as clients.
Thanks, man.
But also, I am grateful for the 435 podcast being so neutral. It's hard to remain neutral in today's political landscape, and I think Rob does a fantastic job.
He slipped up here and there, but I think he's correct, of course.
It's all right, though. But yeah, having the governor in there who you've disagreed with a lot and, being neutral and creating a space where people can actually discuss this stuff rather than just become another coal or another piece of wood on the fire that feeds this, if you're on the other side, I hate you.
You're wrong. Yeah, man.
I'm really grateful for that, man. I think about
buddy.
that often. So that's
I appreciate that. Yeah. I'm going to continue to do it. I think it's maybe because I'm just confused, so I'm just flippy floppy. No, not really that way. It really does. You have to examine all the aspects of it. Like if you believe one way, you got to challenge the other side. But I do put a lot of commitment to that. So I appreciate you recognizing that, my friend.
Absolutely.
Well, everybody, this is a short episode. We hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving. We will, as always, see you out there. Thanks for listening in. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. Make sure you're following us on all the social media websites. We love your support. We love the dialogue. We want to continue that going.
Find us at realestate435.com. We'd love to help you find a house here in town or help you get wherever you're going.